For those of you who don't know me or I don't know you, my name is Kirby Gould. I'm Vice President for the Christian Church Foundation. Foundation is headquartered in Indianapolis, but my office is in the Kansas City area, and I represent the foundation in the states of Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Now, if you know anything about our Disciples Church, currently we have no churches in North Dakota, South Dakota, and we're down to about 6 in Minnesota. So I just have about a 200-mile radius around Kansas City where I travel on behalf of the foundation. So when we say the word stewardship, what are the things that come to your mind when you hear the word stewardship? Taking care of, Mm-hmm. Money, thank you, because that's what usually everybody goes to is the topic of money. I like to define stewardship as it's everything you do after you say yes to God. Meaning taking care of the earth, our land, taking care of relationships, taking care of people. But then we get down to what we all think about what stewardship is, and that's money. And in the church, it's how we take care of our buildings, how we take care of our ministers, how we take care of programs, how we give away money to outreach. We can't do a lot in a church without that constant flow of money into the church. And this is the time where typically a lot of churches are stopping to do their annual stewardship campaign, put the budget together, and we're going to have enough money to pay the bills. Although a lot of churches, and I think the statistics is about 50% of churches don't even do a stewardship campaign. And a lot of times those are in rural congregations simply because in the old days, whenever old days were, it was after the farmers got the crops in to see how much money they had from the crops to give to the church. I've been in a lot of rural churches where the fall is where they do God's portion, the celebration of that tithe, the first 10% that from the crops are going to go to the temple, i.e. the church, to fund its ministries. When we think about the legacies of stewardship that we are worshiping in buildings that we didn't build, typically, it's those, our forebears and our ancestors that had the wherewithal and the dollars and the finances to put a building together, to hire the minister who would come in on his horse and buggy, or all those other things. They did it out of dedication and determination to build churches and to build ministries with the resources they had, mostly the financial resources. My grandparents were both circuit preachers in southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri, and often to feed 8 kids at home, they would come home with a bushel of corn or a couple of chickens, and that's how they were paid back usually during the Depression era. And so, we think about stewardship as the budget and the writing and all that boring stuff, but really stewardship is the gathering of everything that we are, everything that we have in order to serve God's church. So stewardship is everything you do after you say yes to God. So when we talk about stewardship in the long continuum of what the resources that are necessary and needed for the church, we're going to start with what we're talking about right now, the annual campaign. And I hate that word campaign, but the annual gathering of the income we need in order to underwrite the church's budget. So, the pledge cards, figuring out what our annual income is and how much of what percentage is it that I can give to the church. Now, we always hear about stewardship in the Old Testament as being the tithe, the first fruits. The first 10% is what we set aside for the temple, growing of the temple. But then if you read a little further, every third year, you're supposed to collect another tithe for the widows, the orphans, the aliens, and the Levites. I'm not a math whiz, but if you calculate 10% plus another 10% every third year, that's a lot of giving. God requires a heck of a lot from us in order to do God's work. Now, flip over to the New Testament, all you Bible scholars, whizzes. How many times is the word tithe mentioned in the New Testament? Once. Woe to you, you Pharisees, you tithe of your mint and your cumin, but you set aside all the things that are important, justice and mercy. So Jesus was going, I'm glad you're tithing, It's just that you're tithing on the tiniest little bit because, oh my gosh, I got to write it down, tithed on the dill and the cumin and the mint. And then over here, we forget about justice and mercy and taking care of the people because that is what they need. So we think about the tithe as sort of that base of what we want to give, but really, guess what? God doesn't care about a portion of you. God wants all of you. There's a little time where the offering plate was being passed up and down the aisle, and it came to little Mary. Mary took the offering plate and put it on the floor, put both of her tiny feet in the offering plate. Well, obviously, what were the deacons? They were yelling and screaming, "Mary, what are you doing?" Well, Mary said, "Well, this morning my Sunday school teacher said that God wanted all of me." So how can we get people to put both of their feet inside and say, "Here I am, God, take all of me." Not a fraction of me, but take all of me. I did a study about 14 years ago about stewardship as a spiritual discipline. And I came up with this, that stewardship, let's see if I can say it right. Stewardship is not man's way of raising money. It's God's way of raising disciples. Say that again. Stewardship is not man's way of raising money. It's God's way of raising disciples, little d, little d. And also that stewardship is a spiritual discipline, but also the discipline of stewardship is spiritual. And I came to that when I remembered growing up. We had a conversation about this last night with my friends about when I was little, when I got my own offering envelope, had my name on it, my number. So when I got that quarter on Saturday night, I could put that in the offering envelope and put it in the offering plate. But I remember watching my mother every Saturday night sit at the desk, the family desk, pulling out a checkbook and writing a check, and in it went in the envelope. And I kind of thought, that's what I want to be like. I want to be able to put my own money in my own in the church's offering plate. So it's sort of that witnessing that we see of what our elders and our parents and others are doing that maybe inspires us to be good stewards of our annual income. So we're in the church, got to have that budget, got to pay the preacher, got to do all these things. So we figure out how we're going to raise money in the annual effort of the church. Okay, second pocket. We're going to talk about 3 different pockets. Now I know usually your Levi's, you only have 2 back pockets, but just pretend like there's a third one there. Second pocket, all right, we got to put a new roof on the building. We got to fix the parking lot. Oh, the boiler's about ready to go off. What is it we're going to have now? What do we have to have? Capital campaign. So that 3-year effort, you pull out the pledge cards. All right, everybody, we know you're giving this much from your pocket to fund the budget of the church, but now we need you to dig a little deeper. How much more can you give? Do you have another asset that you might want to give? Maybe there's a CD sitting at the bank you don't need anymore. Maybe you have some appreciated stock. I don't know, maybe you want to donate a cow or something. Church sells a cow. Bill, I'm sure they'd just love to have you walk in here with a steer and say, cut it up and sell it, and that's my gift to the church for a capital campaign. And so you have resources that you can turn to. I meant to say over here in this operating bucket, there's a wonderful organization called the Center for Faith and Giving. And if you've not looked at that organization and the incredible resources, and I know PTS will give an amen to that, with the former director of that being Bruce Barkauer, who's now doing a whole session through the center on stewardship. But here in the capital campaign, you have Disciples Church Extension Fund, and they're the ones that can come in and research, find out what the potential is for giving in your congregation to help do those capital campaigns. I've done 1 capital campaign in my lifetime, and I will never do another one. In my church, my home church, Hillcrest Christian Church in Overland Park, I knew that the church we really desperately, debt was a big thing for me. I hated that our church had a debt. I said, we really need to pay off the debt. So I go to my minister, when are we going to do a capital campaign? Oh, well, and then, a year later, Neil, when are we going to do a capital campaign? I pestered and bugged him so much. Finally, he just turned to me and said, Kirby, we're doing again a capital campaign, and you're going to chair it. I opened my mouth just a little bit too wide and a little bit too much. So I chaired the capital campaign. It was really a good experience. It really brought to focus how people truly love their church. So I knew the day that when we had to bring our, make our pledges, we were going to do the walk forward, usually like we do in November, the covenant that we bring our pledges. And so I was sitting up in the choir loft, and I had told my husband, John, I said, we have to be the first ones to put our pledge, because I'm the chair. I have to be the leader. I have to be seen as for whether other people would model their type of behavior. So I ran down from the choir loft. I grabbed John and said, come on, we got to go. We walked up to the front and put our offering in the bucket for our initial capital campaign. I might also say that that was a new thing that was going on, what we call a qualified charitable distribution. If your churches are not receiving QCDs, you ought to be talking about that right now. And John was of an age that we could take money out of his IRA to make our pledge. He didn't. I just said, sign the form. I'm taking your money. We're going to give to the church. John pretty well did whatever I told him to do. So, good man that he was. So we were able to make a more fruitful gift because we took money out of a different pocket, not necessarily out of this pocket. So there's your capital campaign. Now we're going to talk about the area that we at the Christian Church Foundation can be the best benefit and the best help to you. And that is what we call the stewardship of accumulated resources. So over our lifetimes, we worked and we saved and we skimped and, tried to pay off bills, put our kids through school, da-da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden, kind of at some point, we look and say, wow, God has been good. God has blessed me with all these resources. Now, what am I going to do with all this money, especially at the time of my death? And this is where the church needs to be very proactive and realize it's okay to talk about that money. It's okay to talk about this money, but we really need to be talking about this kind of money. There is, you can see all kinds of charts and graphs that if a person is giving $10,000 a year to the budget, they have the capacity to give $1 million to a capital campaign, which means they probably can make a gift of $10 million at their death. And those numbers are slightly different, but the magnitude is so much greater. What do you think the number one reason? There's only one reason. Michael, you cannot answer this question. You will not answer this question. Yeah, I know you know too. The number one reason why people don't think about including the church in their estate plan when they die, before they die. Obviously, you can't do it after you die. Number one reason. They didn't ask. We at the church, we think about, we're going to ask for this gift, we're going to ask for this gift. We never ask for this gift. Who is asking, by the way? Who's asking people, hey, put us in your will? Tell me, just name some names. Huh? Well, yeah, of course I am. Huh? Corporate? Food Bank. Arbor Day Foundation. Colleges. University of Missouri, wouldn't you say, Michael? Yes. Public Radio. Heart Association. Everybody and their dog is asking people in your pews, include us in your estate plan. And guess what? They're doing it. Because nobody in the church asked them, would you include us in your estate plan? And that is why I believe that churches are significantly underfunded, because we are not bold enough to ask for that end-of-life gift. Now, what's the problem? Now we get to this issue. If somebody dies and they put your church in the will, and all of a sudden you're sitting there with this big pocket, big check from the attorney, what's going to happen now in your congregation? You think there's going to be a little discussion? Board meeting will be probably as big as it's ever. Well, I knew Sally, and I know she wanted us to do this with the money. No. I knew Sally. She wanted us to do this with the money. So what we need to do in churches is be better about how we receive the gifts. I like to talk all day and all night about people giving money, but then the church has to be good about receiving it. Part of the resources that we have, and I'll tell you what's at the back of the table here in a sec, is to develop policies on what's going to happen when that bequest comes in. Having the idea of creating a permanent fund, a legacy fund, so that when a person dies, you You take that money, invest it, and then use the income each year to, guess what? Subsidize part of the budget. So endowment funds and permanent funds have this significant advantage to help bring more resources to your annual budget. I can go on so many stories I could tell, but when my mother died, she left 1/6 of her estate to First Christian Church in McPherson, Kansas. I only have 4 siblings. There's only 5 kids. Who was that 1/6 child? It wasn't, the milkman's daughter. No, it wasn't that. First Christian Church McPherson became a 1/6 beneficiary. So we went to the Edward Jones office signing all the documents, and we were all getting our inherited IRAs, but that 1/6 went right back across the street to First Christian Church. The first phone call I got after they got that check was from the church treasurer. The church treasurer said, "Kirby, I got your mom's bequest here, from Edward Jones. I got a stack of bills sitting on my desk. Can I just use that money and just pay off all the bills that have accumulated?" I took a deep breath. I said, "Could I come talk to the trustees first about this?" And he says, "Oh, sure. So I gathered the 3 trustees. Now, remember, I'm an adult and I work for this wonderful organization, but back at home, it's kind of weird when you go home because you feel like that little 8-year-old again. So the 3 trustees, one I used to babysit for his kids. The second one my dad used to play golf with. And the third was my 3rd grade Sunday school teacher. So I asked for a meeting, and I said, my mom gave this money. I hate for it just to disappear. Could you maybe think about starting a permanent fund or endowing this, and then the church get annual income? Do you have a policy? I said, "Oh, yeah, we have a policy." And they looked at it. "Oh, yeah, but we never passed it at the board meeting." So they updated the policy for undesignated bequests to go into the permanent fund. And so the income now from my mom's permanent fund, which, oh, by the way, happens to be invested with the Christian Church Foundation. I wonder how that happened. They get a check twice a year. They set it up so every year there's 2 distributions. Well, over time, people in the church board started noticing this little line item and all this income. Now, I will say it was not a lot of money. It did not replace her pledge at all because Mother was a tither, but it was enough to make a little difference in the church budget every year. And as a result of that, I have had 5 people in that congregation say, "I just noticed this money that came from your mom and your dad's estate. I want to do what they did." I now have 5 new gifts that are benefiting or will benefit my home church, First Christian Church McPherson, because of the witness that Mom and Dad made to that congregation. I'm going to guess they sat in a fellowship hall in the church basement in McPherson, and some development officer was there talking to them about, making a gift to the church of a child share, and then having that gift live on. And I think that they were influenced by somebody like me that stood in my shoes, 50 years ago. So what kind of influence that you might find when people might leave a gift, you endow it, you use the income, and others can say, "Oh, that's how Sally did. I want to do what Sally did because I love my church and I want to do this a lot more." Okay, so once I'm going to, again, share with you some of these resources because I want to talk about 2 more things that are really important, but we won't have a lot of time to get into a hard discussion. With the Christian Church Foundation, we do 3 very specific things. We help churches develop these policies on permanent funds, endowments, special gifts. We have an investment program that churches can place money on deposit with us, and several of you represent churches where you're invested with us. I might say that when Slater Christian Church closed last year, they established a legacy fund that is benefiting the Rural Ministry Network. So that legacy of Slater Christian Church is living on. And then we work with individuals on their own personal estate planning, where I get the energy in my work and help them develop the tools and techniques of how they might want to benefit the church at their death. There's a 4th part that we deal with we don't like to talk about. And Paul knows this all too well, and others. And that's when a church reaches the end of their visible ministry and they decide they must close their doors. And that's a sad time. It's a devastating time for them to make decisions about the building, etc. But we ask them to consider, just like Slater considered, setting aside some money to establish a legacy fund. And in our annual report, if you read of all the various individuals who have created their own permanent funds with the foundation, if you see a church that says legacy fund, that's usually a church that has closed and set aside some of their dollars to create, like First Christian Church of Youngstown, Ohio Legacy Fund, First Christian Church, Woodville, Texas Legacy Fund. Oh gosh, there's way too many. You start reading, you start getting a little depressed. But the fact is that now their money will live on forever and ever, rather than it just disappearing or dissipating into nothing, but their legacy will live on forever. Now, the other thing I want to say about this, and maybe this is a whole nother topic that needs to be visited about, is we are also seeing a really awful thing going on in churches that are struggling, and what we've determined to call steeplejacking. That is when a nefarious group of folks say, it's sort of like the birds waiting for the carrion to die. And they go in and they say, oh, we'd love to join your church. And oh my goodness, look at all these people that want to join. We need new deacons. We need somebody to chair worship. We need people to serve on the board. Well, of course, we'd love to be in leadership. And all of a sudden they see the balance sheets and see all this money that the church might have. And very quickly, this nefarious group of people then steer this church away from being disciple or from being something that they didn't want to become, and find that they have to then bow to the wishes of this new group. So we have language that we can provide for you, how you can go in and tweak your bylaws to kind of protect you, and I know Paul has a lot of this as well. I tell the story that just happened, a church up in Iowa, Pleasantville Christian Church. It was not a takeover from without, it was a takeover from within. People inside that church couldn't find a minister. Oh, the region's not giving us a minister. Oh, okay. Well, some guy over here in another town, oh, I'll be your minister. I'd love to come in and be your pastor. Oh, well, good. Come on in. He goes, oh, I happen to represent an organization. We can come in and do your administration. Oh, wonderful. Well, we just think we're going to vote because we don't like the disciples anymore. So the leadership, I put that in air quotes, brought all their family members who probably hadn't darkened the doors in years, but a lot of older members who were actually members of the church. They would not give them a ballot to vote. They gave all their kids ballots, but would not give these longtime members. Basically, it passed by one vote to leave the denomination. And now this other group is coming in and say, well, we don't believe that women should be elders. So you know how that goes over in a church. And we'll take over your finances. Anyway, there are threats out there, folks. There are threats to small churches. I was just visiting one of our board members up in Pennsylvania. She said they don't ask for people to come forward anymore to join the church. Instead, she says, if you want to join the church, come talk to me. We have a class you will go through first on what it means to be a member of this church. And they sort of have to enter a covenant to say, I will follow the rules, basically. And then that way you can determine membership is a lot more solid rather than just a group of people who all of a sudden decide, oh, I'm going to be a member of this church. Your bylaws need to be very tight also about how to define who a member is. And again, I would encourage you to go and look through those bylaws. So that is sort of a tangential thing that the foundation has started getting involved with. This church had a lot of money that was invested with us. That money went away. We looked to make sure that the bequest that one of those dollars represented did not have strings attached. The attorney said nothing was designated. There was really nothing we could do but just send the money back. So those are sort of the more negative things. The positive things are that we as the foundation, we're thriving. We have $1.3 billion of assets under management. We have a very aggressive investment program that churches can grow their funds for future ministries. We have more and more people saying, I'm ready to make that commitment, sign me up. I want to put the church in my estate plan. I want to benefit Week of Compassion, Global Ministries, Rural Ministry Network, the Rickman Fund. We want to benefit. How do we do this? Bring me in. I'll talk with your board. I'll talk with your stewardship committee. I will be that resource for not necessarily this pocket or this pocket, but most definitely this pocket. That is where we thrive, and that is the space that we really feel like we can be of benefit to you. So over there in the corner, I'll tell you what I have. For leaders, this is a green envelope, a green label. There's a difference between green and blue. So if your church is sort of in the early phase of saying, yeah, I think we want to start a legacy fund, or why should we create an endowment? There's a lot of good brochures that can refer to you on that. We have a model permanent fund policy that you can take this and kind of tweak it to make it your own if your church is ready to start an endowment fund. How to manage estate gifts. One of the problems with this church up in Iowa was they had a massive fire, and it burned all their membership records, and it burned all the documents about all the previous gifts that they had received. If they had digitized any of those documents, they could have just pulled those out from a different off-site source. We will also digitize estate documents, because often people say, oh, those are old documents, we don't need those anymore. But I will tell you, those documents are gold when you have to find out if a designated purpose the gift was given for a designated purpose. So green packet is for your leaders, board chairs, stewardship folks, a little report about our investment funds if you want to see our returns and what our asset allocations are. For those, if you have people ready to kind of dig in and say, I want to put the church in my estate plan, the blue packet is for you. One of the pieces on the table is called a personal and charitable financial record. And you can't answer this either, Cheryl. What do you think the percentage is of people in this country who die without a will or an estate plan? 90? Anybody else want to guess? Continues to be at about 70% of people who die without a will. That means if you die without a plan, your church won't get any benefit, because the state of Missouri doesn't care that you went to church for 100 years and played the organ and taught Sunday school and you had good intentions. Good intentions don't go over in a court of law or probate. So this, you get to write down what you own, what you owe, take this to an attorney and put your plan together. There's also a pre-funeral service arrangements. And Bill, I bet you wish every single member in your church would have one of these on file in the church office, especially when you get a newer minister, because we don't know this person. Did they want communion? Do they want flowers? Who are the pallbearers? It's a really good, nice tool to have. I have people that will pick this one up and says, I want to give one of these to my kids too. So that might be a little, Thanksgiving treat. After pumpkin pie, say, let's talk about our pre-funeral service arrangements. The only reason I will say that is a really important conversation to have, there's a document called 25 estate documents you need to put in one place. So after my mother died, John and I had a will right after we got married with the daughters, and then we updated it after my mom died. And so I thought, now's the time to maybe talk about doing that pre-funeral planning, So we went to the local funeral home. Really, this is a lovely topic right before lunch. And we said, we just want to prepay our burials. I was concerned. John was a lot older than I was. I was afraid if I died first, that he probably would not be able to navigate through those waters. So the first question they asked, very first question, where do you want to be buried? Have you ever thought about that? Where do you want to be buried? John, without hesitation, answered first. He said, I want to be buried at Fort Leavenworth. Oh, really? I had not heard this from your mouth before. Well, John is a veteran of the Army, and he said, I think I deserve it. I serve my country. I want my country to serve me at death, or whatever his term was. So the first thing they said, oh, well, we need your DD 214 papers. You know what those are? Called discharge papers. And John and I looked at each other. Where are the discharge papers? Went home. We found them. We got them on file with the funeral home. And on the day that John died, we called the funeral home. They said, we have your paperwork. All we need to do, you just give us the date, and Fort Leavenworth will give us the time that you can come and bury the cremains of John. If we had not had that, I call it the Thanksgiving table conversation, I never would have known what John's wishes were. So maybe you and your spouse, you and your family, you and your church friends need to sit down and have these really detailed conversations. So avail yourself to that document as well. So some other things about charitable gift annuities and Stewards Bank and all those really fun things that I get to tell you about if I come and do a seminar at your church. Oh, Miss Cheryl, would you please hand this out to everybody? This is your take home. Basically ways to give, huh? No homework with the handout. Well, the homework will take place, but I may never know that you did the homework because, I talk to myself, I'm blue in the face, been doing this for 28 years, and I can stir up the information. I never know if people go and put the church in their estate plan. It's that faith that you have to have that folks are going to, get this done. So this is just a summary of ways to give. People say, do I have to wait until I die to give? No. Through the QCDs of IRAs, donor advised fund, permanent funds, you can give a gift at your death of a bequest, savings bonds, life insurance, etc. You can do a gift annuity, a charitable trust. So this is a good just one-page flyer. You feel free to copy this and have this on file at the church. Please note my typing error. I do know how to spell the word America, but my typewriter did not know how to spell it, so that's why I misspelled it. So I always have to point that out. And then finally, our annual report, if you'd like to just know more about our financial situation or status, a picture of our board members and our staff, and a listing of all the permanent funds that are already on deposit with the foundation. Any questions? I went through a lot of stuff in a very, very fast period of time. Yes, Sir Michael. Sir Michael. I love it.
So, not a question. Oh, this one's better. Thank you. Does this one work? Okay. Okay. Not a question, but a comment. And this is something that you and I worked through with the folks at Slater Christian Church. There was a level of skepticism about doing something with the foundation from the perspective that all the churches are pretty independent and independent thinkers. And they're like, well, we don't want the money just going for administrative details at the region or the national level. And so it took a couple of conversations with Kirby and the congregants to understand that that's not the case. That as we were building the legacy fund, which they wanted a version of a legacy fund, but they're like, why can't we just keep it at the local bank? And to be able to go through the reasons that the foundation is the better steward than a local investment firm because of the largesse of the foundation, but also the spiritual connection of the foundation, and also the years of service to churches far and wide. So I think that's something as you're working with folks in the churches to help to build the credibility of the foundation. My whole career in higher education was built on the importance of endowment. So I'm all about endowing because it looks to the future. And I think when you look at the policies and the distribution components of the policies with an endowment, it helps ease folks' minds that this is not just funny money play in for stuff that's not a part of your value system.
Paid for a better commercial. My longtime friend, Michael Cateman. Mike and I served when he was in wore different hats in fundraising. We did a lot of conferences and meetings together. Any questions that I can answer for you right up against the lunch break? At least I kept you awake, didn't I? I rue the person who has to speak after lunch. Okay, I'll be around. Again, there's some swag back there. I got my swag bag if there's something you want, kind of like the pirate's booty chest. Just go through there and find what you want. I've got clips and magnets and all kinds of good stuff. So thank you for allowing me to be part of the Rural Ministry Network. We'll see you at lunchtime.